Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast over on the Chronicle NUFC Facebook page. As you can see, I'm joined by our chief Newcastle United writer, Lee Ryder. As ever, a busy few days for journalists and fans to keep on top of everything regarding Newcastle United. And we will get to legal letters, Mike Ashley in the Premier League and everything else. But for the moment, Lee, just going to start with your reflection on the Wolves draw. Did Newcastle ride their luck a bit, or was the point deserved, do you think?
Oh, they rode their luck a bit. There's no doubt about that. I think, had Jimenez been in sharper form in the first half, then, that game could have been over by half time. Newcastle were extremely lucky. Wolves had some great opportunities, and some of them it actually looked easier to score with what they've done with it, with especially Jimenez. But look, at the end of the day, Newcastle stayed in the game. Even going 1-0 down, they weren't completely out of it. And, they scraped the point. They were very fortunate. There's no doubt about that. But it was a slight improvement defensively compared to the Man United game.
Jimenez said that, it was quite difficult. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was quite difficult to play against Newcastle because it didn't come to win. What do you make of those comments? I guess, obviously, we all want Newcastle to go there and play attacking football and take the game to Wolves. But if a point is what they need and a point is what they get, it's better to have that in the bag than it is to go there and get beat by 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah, I mean, they are difficult to play against when they put their minds to it, because it's parking the bus and trying to hit the opponent on the break, just done with a few more offensive players kind of sprinkled around the team. On this occasion, Ryan Fraser being one of them, he was pretty much a defensive role for him. But on the break, it was important to have him, on the pitch, and also from a, he brings something a little bit different from some of his set plays, but he is still getting used to things, and he's still getting settled in. It's not pretty, but it's got them 8 points out of 6, and it's not regardless of how they've done it. When you consider Sunday and then you consider the Tottenham game where they were unbelievably fortunate, 98th minute penalty via VAR, which probably shouldn't have been a penalty. They've done it. They've got 8 points from 6, so hopefully they can improve.
Not the worst start to a season either, obviously in the quarterfinals of the League Cup as well. Just a word on Jacob Murphy. Not the easiest position to fill in for that right wing back role, and he took to it like a duck to water. He was decent going forward. Obviously, he ended up getting the equaliser, but defensively as well, there was a few moments where if he hadn't got his head or got a foot on the ball, Wolves would have broken. How did you rate Jacob Murphy's performance?
Yeah, he done well, and if anyone was going to hit them on the break, it was probably going to be him. He was actually better than Saint-Maximin on the day. He skipped down the right-hand side a couple of times and tried to get crosses in, won corners and throw-ins and things like that. So done very well. And then for him to step up and get the free kick equaliser, that was fantastic for him. And hopefully there's more to come from him. Just a quick point on Murphy in general. I think he's quite a shy character, quite sort of reserved, and he came into Newcastle on sort of a blaze of sort of publicity. But I was at the team hotel when it happened, and he was actually on pre-season in Germany with Norwich, and such a big story. And he arrived at the hotel, and Sky Sports cameras waiting for him, journalists waiting for him. It may have been too much for him to begin with. And he, coming to a bigger club like Newcastle, and plus he's a Newcastle United fan as well, so he's obviously wanting to do really well for the club and not let anyone down. So he's had a very tough kind of start to life at the club, and hopefully now he's settled down a bit, and who knows, maybe Steve Bruce is exactly the right type of manager that he needs.
Fingers crossed. The balance, though, on Sunday, they lacked creativity going forward. They were quite good defensively. Does that worry you a little bit, or do you think Steve Bruce is approaching every game kind of one game at a time, and we'll probably see another formation maybe on Sunday, and then maybe against Southampton and so forth? Or do you think he might stop with this back five?
I think it's going to be horses for courses throughout the whole season, and you're right. You're exactly right. You might just bring something to the table that we haven't seen against Everton. Strange game to go into because they've been so impressive over the season so far, but then obviously lost to Southampton on Sunday. So if I'm guessing what he's going to do, or what would I do if I was manager, I would probably say I'd be playing a defensive strategy on Sunday to James Park because of point. And I know everyone wants to see Newcastle win. I do, you do. But at the end of the day, I think if we're both being honest, and you offered us a point now against Everton, I would certainly take it because they're the top of the league. So, and then you can build again. So it's just a case. I just think this season under Steve Bruce, they're gonna win a couple, they're gonna lose a couple, and they'll draw. Or they're exactly what the record is at the minute: 1-2, drawn 2, lost 2. I think that cycle will be repeated over the season, and I don't think they're going to be anywhere near relegation trouble. I've seen a lot of things on Twitter about we're going to get relegated. So if they're not going to get relegated, it's going to be, which side of the middle of the table are they going to finish on?
It's interesting you mentioned there we would take a point, Everton top of the league. And last week, Jamal Lascelles' comments caused a bit of anger amongst the fan base about maybe we should just, kind of realise we're playing against Manchester United. And Southampton took the game to Everton. They went one up, and then they went after more goals. And is it because how would you rate Southampton and Newcastle? I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, but do you see Newcastle and Southampton as similar sides, and therefore, because obviously they took the game to a better side in Everton, whereas Newcastle's mindset seems to be, or appears to be, we just have to kind of maybe realise our place against the better sides?
I think with Southampton, they've worked on going into games against the top sides. They've worked on their attacking strength. So I think it was about 12 months ago, they tried to go for the jugular against Leicester at home. I think it was a live game on Sky, and they got beat 9-0 at home. And what happened on that night is exactly what Steve Bruce and his backroom team fear happening. If they go too far forward and commit too much and try and chase a game if they go behind, then the Premier League, the way it is these days, against the top teams who've spent more money than you, can beat you 6, 7, 9 on that occasion. So that's probably the reality of it. And I think that Newcastle are a team. And don't forget, I'm being bored of watching the entertainers and how it could be done. Newcastle are a team that fear. They live their lives in fear in the Premier League, and they are sadly reluctant to take that big chance and get on the front foot against the big team, which I suppose if this game was going to take place in front of a 50,000 crowd, maybe you'd want to get an early goal and then go for it. But don't forget, even behind closed doors, they got that 1-0 lead against Man United, and they almost didn't know what to do with themselves. They panicked. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether to keep going forward or just completely park the bus, and they end up getting beat 4-1. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting debate. Let's put it that way.
Just an interesting comment there from Brian, and he says we've got to go for the win. Surely, with the pace we have up front, but I guess you look at the players that Everton have got, Rodriguez, Richarlison, if he's fit and ready to go, Lewis Calvin. They've got a lot of good players which can hurt Newcastle. So it's not a case of Newcastle just going forward and using Wilson and St. Maximum. They're going to have to be defensively yet again, like they were against Wolves, very strong.
Yeah, and it's going to be what's most important is, and what was very important on Sunday was the first half an hour. where Newcastle just contained Wolves, and if they can contain Everton for half an hour, then I think it makes it an interesting game. If Everton can get an early goal, then it could be a long afternoon. They've certainly got the players to do it, and obviously they'll be reeling from losing at Southampton. So it's about that first half an hour probably, and I see the point. I see the point that he's making there with that question, but Newcastle did get St Maximin on the ball a few times on Sunday, and he couldn't deliver with an assist or a goal. So I think there's a lot of probably too much pressure we put on him. He's the best attacking player, there's no doubt about it, but he doesn't always deliver. He's not as consistent as other players have been in the past. So he's got a bit to work on that side of things.
Let's get on to Mike Ashley then. He delivered a statement aimed at the Premier League about the pay-per-view fees. He said the £15 or the £14.95 isn't acceptable. It's not acceptable to ask fans to pay that. And he called on it to be £4.95 until Christmas. What do you make of Mike Ashley taking a pop at the Premier League and actually, saying something that the fans actually agree with? Because we saw with the food bank donations that the money went there instead. We saw with the figures from Sky Sports and BT that they were well down on what the figures usually are through subscriptions. I think it was 40,000 or under 40,000 subscribed for the Newcastle Man United game. So Mike Ashley's come out and he said something that fans agree, and it's just, what do you make of that?
I mean, just picks and chooses, doesn't he, when he wants to comment on things, depending on how much something has rattled him or what side of bed he's got out of. Really, it's it's impossible trying to second guess Mike Ashley. Depends on what type of mood he's in, and whether he's focused on Newcastle at the moment. His head is focused back on the football and back on the football club he owns. But it was in the summer when nobody could get hold of him. He wasn't responding to anyone's messages. He was living the life undercover, really. But look, at the end of the day, he's right what he said. But I think it's something that the Premier League need to have a big look at, really. But there's more pressing issues for Newcastle fans in terms of the season ticket money. In terms of, I think, I know a lot of people, the money's just coming out of the bank all the time, and we still don't know. To be fair, I think that at one stage it looked like this month some fans were going to be able to return if you've been up at the stadium, obviously, and it's prepped for a COVID secure environment. There's sanitizers on the turnstiles, etc., etc. So I think they did expect October to be the time, but the word that we're getting is that some of the season ticket money will be refunded before Christmas. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens. But again, it's just one of them niggly things with Newcastle where they take too much time to respond.
Is there an ulterior motive, do you think, from Mike Ashley, maybe linked with the failed takeover? A lot of fans were kind of trying to look into that and see if there's anything else to read into. Obviously, look, he's taken the fight to the Premier League. He's hired, QCs to represent him in the club in this dispute about the directors and owners test. But on that statement, is there anything else you can read into that, or is that literally you think just Mike Ashley saying, look, it's not acceptable to ask fans to pay that much money?
I mean, I just think it's something that's, maybe it is a little bit of a PR stunt from him to try and show that he's thinking of the fans. But if he was thinking that had the fans at heart, then the season ticket money would be going back in the bank. The pay-per-view thing's just a total farce, really. I've never been a fan. Obviously, I think most people now have got a Sky Sports account, and it just wrangles me with like sports like boxing, where you've got to pay the extra money to watch a fight. I it doesn't sit well with me that you're already paying an excessive, obscene amount for the service, and then you have to pay a bit more on top of that. So, yeah, I mean, when it's believe it or not, when it's a huge boxing sort of match, I'm listening to it on the radio. I'm like the fans are now they just refuse to pay it. They're listening to local radio now, for listening to BBC Newcastle, rather than pay the 15 quid. And obviously some people going even further and make the point and putting in the food bank, which is excellent.
Yeah, great work by the fans. Over £23,000 raised, which was fantastic. Let's go on to this legal letter then from the Newcastle Consortium Supporters Limited Group. The news broke yesterday. 2 fans with the help of another QC. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's been bubbling away now for a while, that somebody is going to take the Premier League to task, and now this has emerged really. Typically, it comes when you try to have a day off, and you end up doing something anyway, which is fine. But at the end of the day, that was quite a big statement released from the supporters. That's what they're going to be known as, and I back them 100%. I think it's great what they're doing. So hopefully they can get some answers, because the Premier League, I think this big picture project that we've seen kind of sums up how they feel the game should go, in terms of it being the elite band of clubs. But for me, if Newcastle have the money, then they are one of the elite band of clubs, regardless of the way they've ended up being under Mike Ashley. On paper, the stadium, the fans, Newcastle have the backing. They're as big as any of the top 6, as far as I'm concerned.
And you understand is that Mike Ashley is backing this legal letter, which sums up 2020 quite nicely. I think it's been a bizarre year, and I didn't think we'd see that sort of story. The fans and Mike Ashley working together for the good of the club. It's what happens next? If they have got Mike Ashley's back in the Premier League, obviously. Do you think the Premier League are going to respond to this letter?
I think they have to, don't they? Legally, they will have to respond, but I just think that they'll just try and burn the clock down, and it'll just plod on through the legal system, and they will have to address it at some point. But whether we will get answers quickly, we'll have to wait and see. It's again, there's a lot of legal experts out there on social media, but at the end of the day, it's the legal people who are active in this case who count on this one, and we just have to let them do their work, and we'll see how how things pan out.
And from your understanding, we've got quite a few questions in the comments. I'll not put them all on the screen, but the gist is the takeover still on, or is this legal fight about just getting answers, or is your understanding that the interested parties are still interested in trying to maybe complete a deal if whatever issues were there can be solved?
That's the big question, really, and I don't think anybody knows the answer at this stage, whether it can be fully resurrected. But I mean, my concern is that the Public Investment Fund in Saudi Arabia, how long do they stay? How long is their patience going to be on this? But some of the people that are involved in the consortium have certainly shown their support to the fans on this one. From the Staveley camp, I think Staveley's husband yesterday and Jamie Rubins, who were both set to be involved if the takeover had gone through. So they're certainly not dismissing it if these tweets are to be seen as endorsements. So hopefully we do get some answers and some transparency on all this, and see where we go from there, really. But how quickly it happens, that's going to be in the hand of these active legal players.
The waiting game. You mentioned Jamie Rubin there, obviously resigned from his position at QPR. You spoke to people kind of close, and they said it kind of came out of the blue, and then he, said it was kind of, I think he said it was some out of respect for the club. What do you make of that? Obviously, there's been a few tweets from him over the past couple of days, and it's got fans excited. Anything in that, or do you think he's literally just doing it out of respect of the club, and he'll just be now, like the rest of us, maybe just waiting to see how this all pans out?
I think really it did take people slightly by surprise. But if you look at QPR's results at the moment, obviously something needed to change. Whether there was full focus, I don't know. It's one that he'd have to come out and answer the question to. Really, I can't speak on behalf of him. He was set to be part of the board at Newcastle. If that had gone through, it would have been interesting to see how the dynamics work, because I think Amanda Staveley wanted to have quite a leading role in this. But then, I think PIF had their own people lined up as well. So it could have been a bit of a scramble for, who would have been the face of Newcastle, really, in terms of the person at the moment, the person who's the everyday, day-to-day manager off the pitch of Newcastle is Lee Charnley. So he's currently the face of Newcastle, but who would have taken that on after him? We might never find out, but it's one thing is very clear, is that we needed some improvement on terms of the communication to the fans. We didn't have that, so we'll see if it could be a long haul thing, this, but we'll see what emerges. And maybe some of these people, now that the non-disclosure agreement's completely gone out the window, maybe people will open up a little bit more, and we'll see some interviews.
I hate to end on a negative, but we're going to talk about a couple of injuries. Looks like Martin Dubravka will be out longer than expected, and also Jonjo Shelvey had an operation yesterday. Big misses. Obviously, Dubravka's not been there for the start of the season. Darlow has done very well, considering that Darlow wouldn't have played against Wolves, and that speaks volumes about how well he's done. And Shelvey, not always effective, but still arguably the one that kind of controls the middle of the park. So how big of a loss will both of them guys be? I mean, especially Shelvey, because he has played a large part of this season so far.
I mean, the Dubravka one at the moment, while we all love Dubravka, Karl Darlow is going about his business, and we haven't felt the absence of Dubravka, because Karl Darlow's played so well. No goalkeeper saved more. He's doing everything that's asked of him. There's talk of him wishing to pursue a career with England at a national level, and some people have kind of scoffed at that. But for me, he would be deserving of a place as one of the top 3 goalkeepers in an England squad based on current form. That's how it used to be in the old days. The squad was picked on current form. There's nobody better. There's no English goalkeeper playing better than Karl Darlow at the moment. So for me, he's one of the top 3 goalkeepers in the squad. But that's one for Gareth Southgate to work out, I suppose. But Shelvey, again, I think Newcastle will miss him at times, but I think he's not irreplaceable. There's the Longstaff brothers back now, available. So, one of them can come in and do a job. Isaac Hayden's still in and around it, although he is carrying an injury. Ryan Fraser playing the central role the other day. There's plenty of options. He's not no one's irreplaceable, really. It should be looked at by the players who are available to come in and do a job and really grasp that chance. And Karl Darlow is probably the best example of that I can give.
Fantastic. Well, Lee, thanks for joining us. To you guys watching and listening as well later on the podcast, thanks for tuning in. As ever, head over to Chronicle Live, where we'll keep you up to date with all the latest Newcastle United news.